Beijing 2022. Human Rights on Ice.
The 2022 Winter Olympics in Beijing have officially concluded. During yesterday's closing ceremony, the president of the International Olympic Committee, Thomas Bach, lavished praise on China, saying that they had, quote, set the stage in such an excellent way, and using words like outstanding and magnificent, ordinary, extraordinary, and truly exceptional to describe what the Chinese Communist Party put together. But my next guest will probably have some other adjectives to describe the handiwork of the CCP. Joining me now to wrap up our special Human Rights on Ice series is China expert Gordon Chang, author of The Coming Collapse of China and the Great U.S.-China Tech War. He can be found on Twitter at Gordon G. Chang. Gordon, welcome back to the program.
Thank you so much, Tony. And the word that went through my mind, that adjective, was despicable.
Well, let's talk about that, because what the Chinese Communist Party had hoped was, as Mr. Bach had described, hoping that the world would see China in such a way. They had the international stage for nearly 2 weeks. Did the Communist Party of China succeed in whitewashing their image?
Maybe internally, but certainly not externally, because what they did, Tony, was to give a bigger platform to the critics of China. It gave people the opportunity to talk about genocide, atrocities, crimes against humanity, talked about totalitarian social controls at home. This was really a scene actually for people to talk about China in a realistic way. So no, externally, this was a debacle for Beijing.
Nothing like what we saw back in 2008 when they had the Summer Olympics. Of course, it's a different country now. They've been able to basically lock ranks, and their grip that the Communist Party has on the Chinese people is much stronger. But I think you're absolutely right. I know you were busy over the last couple of weeks, and most human rights experts as well, speaking out using this platform. Is this reflective in the lackluster numbers of viewers for the Beijing Olympics?
Tony, I'm really stunned by that, because I thought that the Olympics in China, with all of these issues surrounding it, would have meant record viewership on NBC. But that obviously was not the case. There was a record, but it was record low. So I'm really surprised about that. You know, it's one of those things where, to borrow a word from another religion, I actually do believe there's karma in the world, and NBC suffered it.
Well, they certainly didn't use their platform to draw attention to the abuses of the Communist Party there in China. But let's talk about corporate America. What do you think has been the coming out of corporate America through the Olympics? What messages are they sending?
Well, they sent two messages. I mean, internally, companies like Coca-Cola inside China were actually heavily promoting their sponsorship of the Olympics. But externally, they were silent. And I think that's a real indication that these companies knew that what they were doing was wrong, that what they were doing was complicit in these crimes against humanity. And so they did not want to highlight their role as backing the Olympics, and therefore backing China, and therefore backing what China has been doing against Uyghurs, Tibetans, and other minorities.
You know, Gordon, public awareness, public sentiment reaches a tipping point when there are those that continually speak about these issues. And it would be clear to me, of course, I'm very close to it, so maybe I'm a little biased, but it appears to me that there is a growing momentum in terms of the concern that the international community is showing regarding what is happening in China, not only to the Uyghurs, to the Falun Gong, to the Tibetans, and to the house Christians that are also being targeted by the Chinese Communist Party. Are we nearing a tipping point in terms of the international outcry against China?
I actually think that we are. And part of it, Tony, is not just that there's been an accumulation of news about China, but during these Olympics, China actually highlighted its role against Uyghurs, against India, against, for instance, health. They highlighted their role in spreading COVID-19 beyond China by having Director General Tedros of the World Health Organization be one of the torchbearers. So I think that essentially Beijing is now so arrogant that it wants to rub this in our faces, that it's trying to intimidate us. And that is creating the tipping point that you're talking about.
And so I would think that because, we really can't touch the Communist Party of China, but all of those who are complicit in their agenda and in their abuse of human rights, corporate America, the political class, Hollywood, and others who are aiding and abetting the Communist Party, I would think that they are vulnerable.
They are vulnerable because what they have done is they've mortgaged their future and put it into the hands of a regime. That regime is going to do things that, and has already done things, of course, that Americans abhor. And that means that NBA, Hollywood, Walmart, all of these big institutions and companies now have been identified and have placed their future in the hands of people they can't control and people who are monsters.
And so still, the American people who care about basic human rights, especially I would say to our audience, Christians who do not want to see other people persecuted for their religious beliefs, one of the things you do is you stop buying products from China that in some cases are made, at least in the supply chain, slave labor or forced labor used in those products. I mean, we can make a difference by the way we spend our money.
Absolutely. With our everyday purchasing decisions, we can strike a blow for freedom and democracy and for freedom of religion and for all the things that we believe in. We can also make that decision with our investments, not investing in China. Telling our investment managers, no, don't put your money in stocks X, Y, and Z. And we can do a number of small things. Each of us, there's just so many of us. There's more of us than them. And collectively, we do wield great power.
Yes, and it's important that we teach corporate America a lesson. And I know they're motivated by money. And so we get their attention and maybe keep them focused more on the straight and narrow. No promises, but we can do our best. Gordon Chang, always great to talk with you. Thanks so much for joining us on our final segment of Human Rights on Ice.
Thank you so much, Tony.